Hi, this is David, and I'm back. I'm the host of Vintage Comic Book Show and Tell, and I'm back with Danny. I don't know what he has. He brought a stack of comic books, and he's going to show them to me.
Well,
I'm excited.
it's kind of a preface, though. We're going to talk about something really specific. Steven Johnson. We know Steven as the Bagman. That's how we met him.
Yeah. Let's talk about why we called him the Bagman.
Well, he had a company called the Bagman. He sold comic book like paraphernalia for like display cases and top loaders and things like that.
There was a time when you could not buy bags and boards, and I know that the community is spoiled today.
Steven sold a lot of different things like ways to display books, filing systems that he sold, and
Yeah.
like dividers for long boxes and things like that. So he sold a lot of different things. So he called himself the Bagman. His name was Steven Johnson, and I met him at the San Diego Comic Con in 1988. And I just met him. I went into one room, and he was set up. And what I noticed about him is he was predominantly selling whole runs of things, and he wouldn't break them up. He had I recall, like specifically at that 1988 meeting, he had a whole run of Marvel's Planet of the Apes magazines, which I'm really sorry I didn't buy now, to be quite honest. Because
Yeah.
think about this, that series might have ended in the late 70s, and in some 1988, it had probably, the books were only 10 or 15 years old, and I didn't think of that as something that was really difficult to put together. It
Right.
would be really hard right now to go out and put a really high grade run of Planet of the Apes
And
together.
they're out there.
You see,
His are
you
out
see.
there.
Oh yeah, they're out there.
I mean,
Somebody bought them that day.
he had approximately 25,000 comics, if I remember correctly.
So they were mostly original owner books, and he did buy back issues, but most of the things he was selling were he bought everything through the late 60s to the early 80s, and both Marvel and DC. And there were some things he was going to hold back and some things he was going to sell, but he would only sell them in runs. He didn't want people coming in and just buying like the best issue. And I met him. Another friend of ours, Wayne, met him. I introduced him to you. And so the three of us started buying books from him, and we called them the Bagman books. Unfortunately, he died sometime in the early 2000s. Eventually, his collection got sold off, what was left of it,
Yeah.
and it got named the Monterey collection. And I didn't even know that until years later because I'd kind of lost touch with him. It's not a pedigree because the collection was broken up. It's an original owner collection. I happen to own probably several hundred books from there. You just bought a collection that has a bunch of.
At least several hundred more.
We'll always call them the Bagman books.
Yeah, I call them Monterey if I'm explaining what the book is. I've probably owned 500 that I sold off. I probably have 100 left.
Well, you bought the entire run of Iron Man.
They started to pick up at around issue 35 where he was buying them, and they were back issues before that.
Right.
They weren't great. I mean, I think the number one was a 7.0, but starting in 35, they were primarily 9/8s. And I mean raw, I sent them to CGC, and I was getting 9/8s from CGC. And I've even got a 10.0. I've got a gem mint from books that I sent in back in the day.
Well, you had the Iron Man 55, if I
Iron Man 55, the first 9/8 ever slabbed, was one from Steve Johnson, that I submitted, that I sold at the time for $500 on eBay.
You know, the things that we bought from him, going back, I think you bought the most mainstream thing. You bought a lot of Marvels.
Yep.
I bought the Marvel Spotlights with Ghost Rider, but I ended up selling them to you, and you ended up doing something, slabbing them and selling them.
9/8. Yep. First 9/8 of the first appearance of Ghost Rider was one I slabbed and sold. Yeah. It was nice to bring that into existence the way I did, and it's going to be around way after I'm gone. And there's only four, unless there was a fifth one. I know that at least one of those were Steve's, and I'll bet you multiple copies of that were from this collection. So that's why we're talking about it. Those books getting spread out in the comic community, and with all of the sets that he had, wow, he did a great job of really
Yeah,
preserving it.
and most likely people who own the books that came from his collection don't even realize it now, and it probably, sets got broken up.
Yep.
But I have a set here that I bought from him the first year that I was buying books from him in 1988. Almost every book here's from that. He had a couple of holes I had to fill.
Let's take a look at it.
This is Super DC Giant.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
So I love the DC Giant books, like whether it's 80-page Giant or Super DC Giant or DC 100-page Super Spectaculars, and then the DC Treasury books. I like them all. So that was the Steven Johnson the Bagman copy of that. And I wouldn't say it's real common, nor is it really sought after, probably highly, but it's a great looking copy.
So I dig teen humor, by the way. I've always liked it. These are great, and these are hard to find in really high grade, by the way, if you look for them.
So
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That and the condition on these guys, phenomenal. Yeah,
original owner books, probably, you
keep
know,
coming, my brother.
the thing is, he didn't even read some of these things because I know that because I'd open them up and you could hear that crinkling sound.
What? Yeah, explain that sound because it's
Well,
one
like I
of a
said,
kind.
it's when you open up an old newsprint book, like from the 70s or whatever, and the page, the first page has never really been separated from the cover before, and it just makes this sound. And I've opened up many of his books to hear that, knowing that I'm probably opening this comic for the first time.
There was a very distinctive sound we used to tell each other about it. Like, listen, one time Danny recently had opened one that hadn't been opened yet, and he called me up so I could hear it. Any standout covers? I know that Joe Kubert covered on that Western Comics, and this was a long run from DC. Let me back up to this. This was a long run. How many? There was a lot of issues of
Oh
Western.
yeah,
Started in the
yeah.
50s.
Not something I really
Um,
collected, but and I
yeah.
think one of the reasons I like all the Giant series is their every issue's different, so you get exposed to a bunch of different stuff. Um, I collect Brave and the Bold, and so I really like that issue. These
Oh, now this
this was
book,
not a Steven Johnson book.
yeah, and this book. Well, Stephen would have kept this one.
He would have kept it,
Yeah,
yeah.
he liked particular female covers, if I remember right.
Yeah, anything that was romance or like if it had like a Supergirl, for instance, or something, he'd keep some of
And
those
and,
books.
and this was one of the hotter issues in the run, right?
Yes,
And
the two romance books. So I had to go back, and this isn't even in great
this is a
condition.
pretty low grade copy, but it's still an important issue in this run. Yeah.
But like these obscure issues, they'd be really tough to find.
Yeah, here you go, Three Musketeers.
This one also wasn't. This is one I had to buy. I have a nice copy now, but for many years I had a very low grade copy. It's a pretty tough book to find in nicer shape, and don't know why in particular. He did tell me that like there were some issues he couldn't find in the stands, and so that's why there'd be a hole in the collection.
I wonder if they were low distro. Oh wow.
This is the other
Oh
of the
wow.
romance books, and
Look at
again,
that cover.
I had to go out and find a copy of that one to fill in the collection. That's
This,
probably the most popular book in this whole run.
and these are pretty expensive, aren't they?
Yeah, I'd say that they're the most expensive issues in the run too, where the rest
Yeah.
of them are not of great value. That one,
And this is a nice copy. And you had to go get this copy?
yeah, I had to get that
It's a
copy.
pretty nice copy.
Yeah,
Yep.
this one I think you'll like.
Yeah.
Yeah, David collects that stuff, so you
Okay.
don't have one of those, do
I
you?
don't.
It's another Western book. So when you collect this kind of a run, you're getting something different every issue. There's another one you'd probably
Yeah.
like.
So Unexpected is a series that they're very difficult to find in high grade, and you'll find try to find any Unexpected on eBay in high grade or in an auction, and you're going to find that people are just asking
You
for a
know,
lot of money.
I want to say something about the numbering of this series too, real quick. That first issue you showed with Binky starts at S13. Nobody really knows why there's an S. It could stand for super in the Super DC Giant. I've never
Yeah.
heard a great explanation, and nobody knows what happened to the first 12 issues.
All of these are reprints, right?
They're all reprints,
Yeah.
yep, and they start with S13 and they're consecutively numbered until we get to the final issue. And this one is Challengers of the Unknown, S25.
And is this an original cover? Original?
Most of the covers are original,
This is
and
Jack Kirby, right?
yeah, and the reprints in here will be really early issues of Challengers of the Unknown, probably either from Showcase or the first few issues of Challengers.
I recently got a copy of this, and I really just like the dinosaur man. I dig Jack Kirby all day long, but this is a great dinosaur, and I like this cover.
This
Um,
one I really like. It has something, to my knowledge, that is the first time ever that General Zod is on the cover of a comic. Because think he was first introduced with the Phantom Zone way back in the day, and then he was never on a cover of a comic book. Me and another collector were trying to figure out, where his first cover appearance was, and I think that's it.
Really nice copy. This is just a standout copy.
And this is the last issue, S26.
This is one of those series that it just stands out that they're so high grade.
I think there's an S27. It's called like Flying Saucers or something, and it came out in the mid 70s, like years after this run ended. And I don't think I have that one, but these were the ones I got from Steve.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing those. The beautiful set. And any of you have these, If you do, just say something in the comments. Were these the kind of books you'd read as a kid?
I started collecting in the early 70s. I loved reprint books because it was my way of going back and being able to like see stories and art wasn't exposed to before. I really liked reprints. Reprints, I don't think are highly collected for the most part, but put them in the context of back when they were first issued, and they were our way as young collectors to see books that had been published years ago that we didn't probably see.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in on that one. See you next time.